Well, a Cuban who spied for the United States is now on American soil. All right, so this is an amazing story because this guy served nearly 2 decades in prison in Cuba for spying on his own country. He was the American intelligence agent released for 3 Cuban agents. He was released, so there was 3 of them for 1 of him in this exchange on Wednesday. Now, we only saw the very public homecoming of Alan Gross. You know who he is, the American government contractor who spent 5 years in a jail in Cuba. But this man, this mystery intelligence agent, officials have yet to release his name. And very few people actually knew this man existed, let alone his sacrifice to the United States. And apparently he was one incredibly important spy. Joe Johns is out front.
Alan Gross, released from jail after 5 years, was in the spotlight. But at the same time, a high-value U.S. spy, called by some an American treasure, also gained his freedom in the prisoner swap with Cuba and has been brought to the United States.
One of the most important intelligence agents that the United States has ever had in Cuba, and who has been imprisoned for nearly 2 decades.
U.S. officials refuse to release the spy's name, but sources inside the government and out tell CNN his name is Rolando Saraf Trujillo. These are believed to be pictures of him, now in his early 50s. The Cuban national worked on encrypted communications for Cuban intelligence assets, but he was secretly working for the CIA. He was discovered and convicted of espionage in Cuba in 1995. U.S. officials said his work was instrumental in identifying 3 Cuban spies. He was also said to have provided information to uncover the so-called Cuban Five, cases U.S. authorities made years after Trujillo went to prison.
From a counterintelligence perspective, what you want to do is you want to get as many of these spies or people that are working for them as possible. And that's why it can take a very long time, even after the spy was incarcerated initially by Cuba.
Human rights activists said Trujillo was held at one point in the same lockup that housed Alan Gross, this maximum security Villa Marista prison outside Havana. He had long been identified publicly as a political prisoner in Cuba.
Rowley was part of a 3-member CIA operation. And in the mid-90s, something went wrong with the CIA mission. And one of the members came under the attention of Cuban counterintelligence. They tried to do an emergency exfiltration of all 3 members, and for reasons I do not know, Rowley was unable to get out of country and was arrested.
As part of the trade for Gross and Trujillo, the U.S. released 3 of the so-called Cuban Five. They returned home last night. U.S. officials say they can only disclose pieces of this spy's story. He gave the U.S. critical information and paid for it with 2 decades in confinement. Aaron?
That is incredible. And I guess there are some that say at least the United States finally delivered, did not forget him, and has brought him to the U.S. Joe Johns, thank you very much.